I could show you how to do this with the command line, so you can actually start like configuring webpack through the command line to do this. Let's just build a config file so we don't have to do it anymore. So go ahead and make a new file and put it in the root directory of your project called webpack.config.js. And what we're going to do here is we're going to say const path equals require path. Now, this is meant for Node, right? This is not going to be transpiled, so we're not going to use ES6 modules because Node does not yet understand ES6 modules. So we have to use CommonJS. Okay. Then we're going to say module.exports. And we're just going to put a bunch of stuff in here. Context, dir name. What this is saying is that we're running this from our root directory always. So you can run this from this. You can run webpack from anywhere in your project, and it's always going to run from that root directory. That's what the context dir name translates to. Dir name is just a node global variable that refers to that root directory of your project. Entry. So for now, we're just going to have one entry, which is going to be .js/clientapp.jsx. This is just telling it this is the front door to your project, right? Everything is going to be included out from here. Dev tool. We're going to do cheap eval source-map. I think that's what it is. I'll have to make sure that that's the case. There's several different types of dev tools, like you can do full source maps and everything like that. This is the one that plays the nicest with all the tools that we're going to use. That's why we're going to stick with it. This is just saying inline all of my source maps into my bundled code. It's going to make your bundled code bigger in development, but it won't be included in production. And for source maps, for those of you that aren't familiar with them, if I transpile from my source code to evaluated code, if I don't have source maps, it's going to, when I click on the errors, it's going to show me directly in the bundled code, which is worthless, right? It's impossible to read. If I have source maps, it's actually going to show me like my code, right? It's going to show me the pre-transpiled code. That's why we do source maps. Output. Path. And that's going to be path.join dir name public. So path is a node module that just resolves like Unix style relative paths for you. So if we do this dir name public, we can be assured that it's always going to land on this the public directory that we're talking about, no matter where we call it from our project. That's why we're using it. And file name, I call it bundle.js. That's a common thing to call it, but you could call it whatever you want to. Okay. Resolve. Extensions. So if I say, for just, you don't have to copy on this line, but if I say const app equals require ./app, right? This is the order that it's going to try file extensions before it finds the correct one, right? So I'm going to say .js, .jsx, and then .json. So the first thing it's going to do is it's going to try and see if I find a file called app, like app with no file extension, right? That's the first thing it'll check. Then it's going to say, does .js exist? If that doesn't exist, then it's going to try .jsx. And if that doesn't exist, then it's going to try .json. And if that doesn't exist, then it fails. So it's the order of resolution of those extensions. stats, this is just the various things that you want it reported back to you when you're building. So we're going to say colors true because I like colors. Reasons, this is going to give you more useful error output, so definitely put that. And chunks, I don't think this one's useful anymore, but we're going to put it in there anyway. This is just saying if your code is being broken up into multiple different chunks, please tell me about that. And then the last thing we're going to do here is we're going to start using Babel. So modules, not modules, modules, singular. Then rules inside of that, which is actually not, this is going to be an array. Okay. So this is going to be an array of rules that Webpack is going to use to apply different loaders to your code. Now, what is a loader? A loader is just a plugin. It's actually not a plugin. Let's not conflate words. It is a tool that Webpack is going to use on your code in some fashion, right? So the first tool that we're going to be using is Babel, right? So we're going to give it the Babel loader so that Webpack will use Babel for us, right? Does that make sense? So we're going to give it an object. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to give it a test of some sort. This can be a function, this can be a regex, this can be several different things. We're just going to use a regex. So you can do slash backslash dot JSX question mark $, slash, and then we're going to say loader colon Babel dash loader. I am by no means a regex expert, but what this means is the file extension for the file must be .js and possibly x, right? So that's the question mark means that x might be there, and then the $sign means this must be at the end of the file name, right? So anything that ends in .js or .jsx run through Babel. That's what that means. Cool? Okay. Loader, you're just telling it here, this is the name of the loader that I want you to run it through. So it's going to call Babel, and it says, here Babel, here's your thing, right? It's going to call it with all the output from the file, and then Babel's going to do something and hand it back to Webpack. That's the contract that's going on here. And just so you know, you could say loaders and then give it an array, right, of different loaders to run it through. Right now we just have one. We just want it to run through Babel loader, so we're going to leave it at that. Any questions? Make sense? Okay. Save it. Thanks to Prettier, it's going to be all nicely formatted. Okay. So now I can go to my command line, and notice before I was saying I was giving it the entry and exit. I don't have to do that anymore. I can just say Webpack. It's automatically going to pick up the config, and it's just going to do it for me. Now you're going to notice that it's going to take significantly longer than it was before. Why? Because everything's being run through Babel, and it's a pretty intense process. So again, we're introducing tools for the sake of ease, but it comes at the cost of complexity. And now we went from having 700 kilobytes, which was ridiculous, to having 2 megabytes, which is yet further ridiculous. But again, you have to remember, now Babel is including all of its polyfills too, right? So Babel actually is going to add quite a bit of weight to our bundle as well. But when we go actually to minify and gzip and go this to production, it's going to be significantly smaller. In fact, I can show you what it looks like. So if you put -p, this is saying, hey, I'm building for production. And it's going to do a whole different set of transformations. And we shaved 0.15. Oh, because we have all the source maps in there. Source maps are huge. They're going to over double the size of your code. So we'd have to drop the source maps too. We'll talk about performance and building for production on the third day. So yeah, let's build and let's go see if everything works. Everything is still working and looking good.
Can you go back to your index, the HTML file?
Yeah, you just need to include public/bundle.js.